In the beginning, silence wide, only Om across the tide. From that void a pillar rose, endless light that softly glows. Vishnu dove and Brahma flew, seeking ends only the cosmos knew. Vishnu found no final place, Brahma lie with Ketaki's grace. Shiva thundered, truth is one, from my Shakti worlds are spun. Brahma, you shall dream creation woven through desire's temptation. Vishnu holds the fruit of life. You bear Maya, surface and strife. And when Brahma saw the bride, her veil unfurled in the wind's sweet tide. Desire rose, he could not hide. Shiva's fire of judgment flamed, yet the gods for mercy claimed. Thus was born the mortal song of right and wrong, of weak and strong. For even gods in error grieve, and wear the dreams that mortals weave. So tell me beneath the odds, what does it mean to challenge the gods? To find within beyond facades the divine that dwells against all odds. Good morning.
Good morning. How are
was
you?
Good. How was your night?
Oh, it was good.
Luxury to me has never really been about price or possession. It is the art of belonging, of feeling a place come alive within you. When the walls breathe stories, when the light carries silence, when comfort becomes connection. That to me is true luxury. Rajasthan taught me this. For here, even the sands remember how kings once camped. Beneath the stars, these tents bring that memory back. A blend of past and present, earth and elegance. Welcome to Pushkar, the only place on earth where a temple still honors Brahma. Here the air whispers myth and question together. In this sacred mirror of reflection, we ask, what does it mean to live beyond right and wrong? And joining me today at this beautiful luxury tents, Ravai Luxury Tents. Before we begin, a little about Geetanjali. She is the best-selling author and transformational coach whose book Buddha at Work has touched readers around the world, bringing ancient Buddhist and Indian wisdom into modern workspaces and life. Once a chief human resources officer for major corporates, she left that world to walk the path of self-discovery and help others find their own deservability. She now guides individuals and organizations towards transformative growth through mindfulness and spiritual leadership. Welcome to the Pathbreaker. Let's follow wonder. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
Ravai Luxury Resorts.
Thank you so much, Ritika, for having me.
Here we get to experience the charm of glamping and luxury living in Pushkar.
Wow. Oh, it looks amazing. And what a view.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? And the sun coming up right there.
Yeah, I know.
So let's walk and talk.
Sure. And we'll walk the talk.
And we will walk the talk. I have a bunch of questions for you.
Oh my gosh.
Your life has been quite a journey, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely it has.
So let's start. I don't know if we should talk about this first thing in the morning, but
No choice. So
Mm.
you fled a physically abusive and psychologically toxic marriage in 45 days.
Yes.
In a society that teaches that marriage is sacred, leaving is failure, what gods were you challenging? Tell me about that.
I don't think I was challenging any gods at that point of time, Ritika. It was not an easy decision because my father was aging. This was an arranged marriage to someone who was very wealthy, very powerful. I think I was the trophy wife,
Oh.
in the way I looked in the family that I belonged to. I knew that I couldn't continue to accept the level of abuse and the humiliation, if I can put it like that.
Yes.
Um, I think I was reared with um, a lot of understanding of dignity of human life,
Yes.
something that I was to learn much later and, have a different perspective on once I understood the teachings of the Buddha. But
Mhm.
even then, and it was not an easy decision, I think for all women who are in similar situations, it can never be an easy decision because what you're giving up is very concrete,
Yeah.
right? And you're leaving it for the intangible.
How did your family take this?
So at that time, I'd already lost my mother
Mhm.
to pancreatic cancer before this.
Mhm.
My dad was in his early 70s.
Mhm.
And, unlike today, the age that I was at
Mhm.
was early 30s, but I think I was a very naive um, and very foolish 30-odd-year-old person.
I was like, do so. I still am.
So, so initially there was a lot of skepticism, as to what I did and why I did it. The extended family, in fact, didn't support me at all.
But your immediate family did.
My dad, that was just,
He stood with you.
yeah. And
Sometimes that's enough.
yes and no. Yes, in the sense that he understood immediately what had happened. And to him, it was very clear that his daughter had suffered and he was there like a rock for me, right? But had the extended family supported me, I think the outcomes for me would have been very different because fighting an emotional battle and fighting the legal battle all at once is not simple and not easy at the best of times, in the best of ways. And in a place like India, where often justice is given a miss.
Oh my
And
God, tell me
often
about it.
the due process of getting to justice is given a miss. And all this talk of women's rights and the laws that support women, when victims truly, or people who really suffered, when people really need to reach out for that, it's kind of missing. It's not on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I faced a lot of issues with administration, with the local authorities, because as I said, this was a person who didn't want the divorce.
Oh, your husband didn't want it?
No,
Ex, yeah.
Yes, this was someone who didn't want the divorce. This was someone who had money. This was someone who had power, and
Wanted to hold on
yes,
and keep you as that
yes,
cattle that he can just keep.
yes. And I don't. On the emotional front, I don't think he got the abuse part of it.
He didn't realize he was abusive.
He didn't realize that his family was abusive and that he was abusive, and I was reared very differently, and his values were very different. Of course, on the physical plane, there's just no misunderstanding of what was happening. But on the emotional side, the verbal abuse, I don't think he got it.
The beauty is that even in that heaviness, there is light.
As is the sun shining bright on me,
shining on us
yesterday and on us. Yeah, it's just I seem to be absorbing more of the light
No, we're in it. Don't worry. Together. Thank you so much. Moving on in our conversation today, so you never met the timelines that society set for you, or for all of us for that matter, right? You met your current husband, Manoj, at the age of 39.
Yeah.
You chose partnership over panic.
Mm-hmm.
How did you silence the voices that said you were running out of time? Or can you actually silence the voices outside? Or is that a shift that happens inside of you that,
I think
makes you indifferent to those voices?
I think the voices outside are more easy to get away from than the voices inside, isn't it?
That's true.
मुझे बहुत लोगों ने कहा कि I think I was 34, 35. I had started doing well professionally. I had healed from the trauma of the abuse and the divorce and all the events. I was coming into my own as a person. I hadn't healed from the grief of losing my mom, right? It was 5 or 6 years post that.
Can you heal from that?
I had a huge shift in healing of the grief of losing my most beloved mother. And also the pain that she underwent because she had the most painful kind of cancer, which is pancreatic cancer. I think that shift happened when my daughter, my elder child, came home. Right. And I could begin to find a new healing within. मैंने बहुत बार कहा भी है, मैं लिखती भी हूँ इसके बारे में, that grief is a shapeshifter.
How do you explain that?
So, it has a different dimension when you experience the loss of someone close to you, when there is a life transition, in whatever way. At that time, it's this huge ball of pain lodged over your heart and your stomach and every aspect. And then it may recede a little, that ball sort of diminishes till you hear of someone talking about their mother. Till Mother's Day comes around. Something happens and then it sort of recurs again. But it's coming in different dimensions, different levels of intensity. So there is no substitute. Of course, there is no substitute to a mother, your own parents. So you go through this journey understanding that time doesn't heal. It helps to shift the focus.
I guess you're right.
It's like a distraction. Time is a distraction. Right? And then at some point, we have to become our own parent.
I talk a lot about reparenting the self, which is not the same, which is very similar to parenting a child.
Right.
You have to find and nurture and hold your inner child. Because everything that we do in our adult life stems from that inner child.
Right.
Which we are not aware of.
Right.
So that is what awareness is to me. One of the major aspects of awareness is to be consistently aware of all of us have been neglected in some aspect of our childhood.
True.
Which has created trauma. How did you silence the voices inside you? Let's start there first.
Well, I didn't really have a voice inside me saying that I will not find love. And with Manoj, it was love. Fight like cats and dogs now.
That's an aspect of love. I will tell you. If you can't fight as much as you can embrace, then I don't think it is love.
Yeah. Well, we've walked this path for nearly 20 years now, 19 years. We've just celebrated our 19th anniversary.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So, clearly we've sort of stayed the course for these 19 years. But mujhe aaj bhi yaad hai, I remember when I was 34, 35, designer that I went to, she was saying, and at that time I was the CHRO for one of the largest full media companies in the country. I was rocking it professionally. And she said, so how old are you? So I said, 38 at that time. 38, yes. So she said to me, and I said, I've been through, a nasty divorce. Oh, she said, you can forget marriage.
Right. Oh, she said that to you point blank on your face?
Yes. In fact, to me, you can forget marriage. There are many others younger who are waiting and who don't have I remember her words, who don't have a messy past, waiting to get married.
Oh.
And I laughed.
Was it a laugh of sarcasm?
No, I laughed that, this was being said to me. I found it very amusing for some strange reason.
And that's how you attract it. That's how you align with it.
Yes.
When you're not focused on it and you're focused on your own life, right? And just expanding your own experience of it.
Yeah.
I find that. So that's wonderful morning conversation with you. Now the sun has come up. I think we should reconvene in a little bit and go check out the Pushkar city and
absolutely.
And actually connect with the gods that we're talking about. And
of course, let's do that. हमारी ट्रेडिशन और कल्चर का ही हिस्सा है. Healing, yes. The only place in the world, huh? Ritika, you've chosen such a remarkable place for its history, for its deep link to our traditions and its uniqueness. And the only place in the world. Sorry,
alignment with your story. The humanness of Brahma, got him cursed.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet he remains God, the one who creates everything. So,
But he creates, what does he create? Maya.
illusion.
right, that's true. You have 2 children.
Yeah.
Both adopted.
Yes.
You tried many times to have your own children.
No, well, not many times. Well, I got married at 39 plus. I was short of my 40th birthday by 2-3 months. And I conceived very quickly after marriage. I miscarried within the first trimester. And then after that, somehow the doctors seemed to take over. I didn't seem to have much of a will. It's to ye kar lo, wo kar lo. And, it was all, I would say, physically and very, very challenging to do what they asked me to do. And it had many consequences, including a lot of weight gain. And, so... and then after 1.5 years, I conceived again. 1 year, 1.5 years, I conceived again. I sort of, I would say, cruised through my first miscarriage. Not that I was not unhappy or not grieving, but I was very optimistic. I was like, oh, this is going to happen. What's the big deal in it? Right?
Like everything.
Yeah, like everything else in life. But it became a big deal because of the medical profession getting very involved. And, I went along with what they had to say. And after that 1.5 years of making that pregnancy the central point of life, or getting pregnant the central point of life, when I miscarried the second time, it was hugely traumatic.
Traumatic.
Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When I surfaced from that, the question that my husband posed to me is whether it is important to be a parent, right? And I really meditated. I really chanted. And he said, look, this is not my quest. It is your quest to be a mother, right? We found each other late in life. We've already lived a life of responsibilities.
So the thing is that in a culture obsessed with biological lineage, you adopted not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What helped you stay rooted in your own truth over, the urgency that the world puts you in? I feel it a lot. I'm not going to work on your timeline. No, work on mine, So I retreat whenever I feel like someone is, pushing me to deliver in a particular time frame.
Or deliver a child.
Oh yeah, it's my life, Like I'll do what I need to do at my time. I mean, I've technically adopted 2. I have 6 children, but all underprivileged.
Right.
So it's a different kind of adoption, but they are my children,
Sure.
आपने इस urgency को कैसे दबा के बोला I will do things on my timeline?
About 3.5 months short of turning 40, and I conceived very quickly after we got married. And I miscarried in the first trimester. I was quite resilient, I think, both physically and emotionally. And I was very optimistic. I said, what's the big deal? I'll get pregnant again. But the medical profession sort of took over and really complicated the whole thing as far as I was concerned. Had I just stuck with my own simple faith, I would have conceived. But for 1.5 years, my life was taken over by the medical profession. And my body was treated by so many doctors and so many things were happening that I kind of lost myself in that, And I conceived again and I lost again. And that was very, very
Difficult, disheartening.
very, I grieved. It was traumatic, it was not simple. Then one day, my husband asked me how important it was for me to, be a parent, to be a mother. We did go to a few doctors, but they were giving more and more complex solutions. And I had lived through the trauma that medical stuff can put on your body. And my husband said that, look, we got married late. We've been looking after our parents for a long time. We are caregivers. And he was perfectly okay to not have a child, right?
Your husband, Manoj.
Yes. And so I went into a period of meditation and chanting and spending time by myself to understand, was this some kind of a selfishness that I was exhibiting? Was I trying to impose my desire to be a mother, to have children on my husband, right? Was I being very inconsiderate of his desires? And the answer I got through my prayers was that this was something that would happen, or it needed to be done, or, this was important to do. Something like that was the voice within, right? Very difficult to pin it exactly.
Yeah.
But
I understand what you're trying to express.
Yeah. So then I told him, I said, look, I've, chanted, I've meditated, I've spent time on this. And the answer which is coming is that we should be parents. And I don't know about you, but that means it's important to me to be a parent, right? To be a mother. And then he looked at me and he said, look, we selected each other. Let's go select a child. And he made it as simple as that. And so we did that. And so our first child, our daughter Namya, came home. And that is the most glorious thing that ever happened. So no timeline. I think we are slightly older parents, but
You just didn't even think about the urgency. You're like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I relate to that. Anyways, now moving on to what you do in the world.
Yes.
At the pinnacle of corporate success, you chose a different path.
Yes.
Authoring and life coach.
Yes.
That's not what successful people do. What made you choose uncertainty over prestige?
So I like to share something which I do write about in Buddha at Work. Is that I was the CHRO for a very large media company and had a difference of expression with the owner promoter of the company, who then asked me to leave.
Oh, okay.
And I left. And I had been called one of the biggest voices in HR in the country at that point in time by other people. Not an accolade I gave myself. A lot of people who met me in conferences and seminars after that also asked me where I was joining, what was happening, and people were looking forward to hearing, about my next big assignment or next big thing. And it turned out that the next 12 months went by in the loss of my identity as a professional. I was the loss of income, which hit me very hard. I was in a caregiving role to both my daughters who were very young. I was looking after my father. My brother had met with an accident in 2014. I was looking after him. And I was in this caregiving role to everyone except myself. Because I was in a daze.
When it rains, it
Pours.
Yeah.
I was in a daze. And I felt that I'm now sliding into depression. Right? And by the end of the year, this was 2015, I was
Diagnosed.
no, there was no diagnosis. The self-diagnosis is that it's make or break. Something's got to change. And I realized that I do meditate, I do chant, and there is that aspect of life. So I realized that finding employment is not in my hands.
Yeah.
Right? Applying might be, but getting a response back and getting a job is not something which I'm geared for or is in my hands, right? There's no agency, there's no empowerment which allows for that. So I made a list of things that I could do on my own. And
Writing was one of them.
writing, no, it started with study. I said, I can
of
study.
course.
I can study. I don't need anybody to tell me. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, all the books that you have on the Buddha, all the books that you have on Indian philosophy,
I
please
want
send
to
them.
study.
Yeah, just send them to me.
Yeah.
And I went
To share, one must study.
So the story unfolded from there. And then the second aspect of it, which I write about in both Buddha at Work and Buddha in Love, is that I've received a lot of grace and a lot of help from the universe. I have a responsibility to pay it forward,
Absolutely.
right? Which is why I speak very openly about my life.
Gitanjali, you brought ancient wisdom to boardrooms.
Yes, indeed.
Spaces built on quarterly results, not timeless truths. What happened when you challenged the metrics-obsessed system with teachings on impermanence and compassion?
I think people that I work with, corporations that have asked me to consult with them, have reported higher profits.
Oh, really?
Yes. There is a study, there's an ongoing study of course, in the West. Where else? Profit is the outcome of the higher purpose of human beings and corporations alike, right? And if boardrooms, if corporations, if organizations, if people understand how vital it is to be able to collaborate, right? And that higher purpose helps us to rise above the differences, the pettiness, the grievances, the dislikes, the envy, and the ambition. Of our working lives. The greed of our working lives.
All in all, greed.
All in all. So there is higher profitability, there is better retention of talent, there is
Calmer workers.
calmer workplaces, calmer workers, and better leadership,
Yes. Yes, of course.
The world looks at leadership as this extrinsic thing about leading people, leading teams, leading organizations, or even nations for that matter.
Yeah.
In 2016, when I was writing Buddha at Work, I wrote extensively on, and something I speak of in Buddha at Work, is about leadership of the self. First, we've got to lead ourselves. We are often at conflict with ourself.
Brahma was cursed for desire, lust, greed. Something so human. We can't deny these aspects.
No,
of ourselves.
not at all.
Yet you teach deservability. That we deserve what we desire. After facing so much rejection, did wanting feel dangerous? And how do you help people claim desire as divine and not dangerous?
Desire by itself is not dangerous.
Yeah.
Being frustrated in desire is very dangerous.
Yeah. I agree.
When there is desire, and if, as you say, it is because I deserve it. It is not about being entitled. It is about building deservability. Right?
So aligning yourself is what you want.
So, for instance, when I joined my practice of Buddhism, at that time I was struggling with unemployment and a lack of money. I was unemployed. I was broke. I was in a legal mess. I was in a physical mess. I was in a emotional mess. I was in all kinds of mess. And I was told to freely pray for what I wanted, right? And as I freely prayed to have financial abundance, professional success, and professional credibility, I didn't get it in a day, you know? A lot of people believe that when they start manifesting or they start praying or they start asking, it is about building your muscle to be able to lift the weight of your own desires.
So being able to hold it.
Yeah. So if I wanted professional success, I had to first get the mindset, I had to get the skill set, and I had to get the ability to collaborate. I had to understand what it takes to be a team player. To someone like me, being an individual contributor comes more naturally.
Me too. Yeah.
Right? You know, so we are good with individual creative pursuits.
Yeah.
Right? It takes far more effort to rise to collaboration. It takes more effort to rise to teamwork. It takes far more effort to look at inclusion and giving of credit. Especially when, let's say that the idea is mine, but my team member has gone and executed that idea.
To be able to give him credit.
Him or her credit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It takes a certain generosity of spirit and mind to be able to do that.
आपको लगता है कम है? Generosity?
I think I had to work at it. Very interesting सी बात है. I'm also a lawyer by qualifications.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So एक बड़ी interesting सी बात है कि हम ये सोचते हैं that the universal laws are different from laws that govern human beings. But globally, and you know, this is timeless. All laws, physical laws, legal laws have recognized the role of intention. आपने किस intent से किया, किस intent से दिया, is equally something that is getting registered in your own cell memory, in your own soul memory, in your own being, who you are as a person, right? The entity which is, going to move from one birth to the next. It is getting recorded. So, intention is critical.
All right. To me, empowerment is about going beyond the moral compass of the society, beyond right and wrong, and finding my own path. What is empowerment to you? How do you help people taste the fruit of life too, not just the fruit of knowledge?
Truth of life boils down to happiness of the self and happiness for others. So when you say it is beyond moral compass, I think there are truths to this compass, whether we call it moral or
Immoral.
or outside of it. The compass is very clear. Violence is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's just no two ways. Whether you call it morality, you want to call it philosophy, you want to call it dharma, you want to call it spirituality, call it religion. Hopefully, the religion is not prescribing violence. So, violence is fundamentally wrong, right? Yeah. The imposition of your will on someone else, right? There are three elements in human life which Buddhist texts call the poison of human life. The first is greed, second is anger, and the third is avidya, ignorance or downright stupidity. Now, cutting the chains of greed, anger, and stupidity, each one of us walks a very unique path in trying to understand how to cut these chains.
Yeah, it's individual.
Right? It's individual. So arriving at one's own truth then is, it's over the years, as I've sort of gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, I have been to a number of people, dietitians, approaches, and they've all been effective. So there's a kernel of truth, even in very different programs, let's say, right? It's what my body resonates with at that point of time, starts that, healing process, loses weight, etc. Stage of life, medical issues, blah, right? Similarly, how is it that I'm going to recognize the role of greed, anger, and stupidity in keeping me trapped, disempowered, and unhappy? There are recurring patterns in each one's life. A lot of people that I work with, or a lot of people who readers of my books, or people who write to me on social media, or reach out and ask this question: why is this happening to me? And then why is this happening to me again and again? A lot of people who move from, let's say, one failed marriage to another failed relationship to another, right? Why is this happening with me? Why am I the person who is attracting a toxic boss again and again? मैंने तो कंपनी भी चेंज कर दी, ये मेरे साथ ही क्यों होता है कि हर बार my boss is a certain way.
So no one is actually looking inside and saying maybe we are attracting it.
Yes. There's some pattern which is at work. I am reacting to situations and to people and to bosses in a certain way, right? And that's the role that my work serves to help people gain an insight into their patterns so that they can begin the work of transformation. I can do no transformation for anyone.
So what you're essentially saying, if I'm understanding this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, the fruit of knowledge is all you can get from the outside. The fruit of life is something you have to find within yourself.
Yes.
So that's...
But the how-to is important.
The how-to.
The how-to. How...
And everybody's how is different.
But I have to cull out what's useful for me, what works for me. I was given a lot of steroids when I was down with the Delta variant of COVID. And my blood sugars have been high since then. I've been declared a diabetic, though I reversed it once after that also. I did reverse it. But I'm back again with medicines and so on and so forth, right? So I had to learn the how to and I'm relearning it again, and I'm learning more modalities and methodologies, and I'm trying to cull out what works for me.
What works for you? Absolutely. Not everything will work for everyone.
Yeah.
I often say that everything works.
Yes.
Every modality we go, आजकल है ना, ये spiritual retreat कर लेते हैं, यहाँ चले जाते हैं, वहाँ. Everything is going to work. Let's read this guru, let's read that also. Everything works.
Yeah.
Like Osho says, बुद्धा चले तो वो पहुंचे.
Right.
मैं चला तो मैं पहुंचा. तुम चलोगे तो तुम पहुंचोगे.
But you got to do the hard work.
You have to do the work.
Yeah.
For me, that hard work is inner work. You know, like
Right.
recognizing and then how to bring that out.
Yes.
So, technically, coming back to the same thing,
आपने शुरू में कहा, you don't need God, you need guidance.
you need guide, yes.
Yeah. Or guidance or guides.
Yeah.
You know, so the how-to is the guide or the guidance that I'm getting, right? And I could be getting it from my child.
Yeah.
I could be getting it from a complete stranger. I can get it from a movie, a book,
Yeah.
a fiction, non-fiction,
From anywhere.
from anywhere. It's that moment of truth to say, oh shit, I've been doing this. Acha.
And how do you turn that into your own?
Yes.
Your own.
Yes.
Beautiful.
The Buddha, if the Prince Siddhartha did not have the desire to attain enlightenment,
Yeah.
right?
There was desire.
There was desire.
But it happened when the desire dropped, when he rose above it.
No,
No?
no. He struggled. And with his desire was so immense that he became like flowing water. He moved in, around, over, under all obstacles that came his way. It was a very hard one, enlightenment. And in that state of enlightenment, he had to again face a test with Mara, the Lord of Temptation, to say that Mara first said to him that, now that you've attained enlightenment, it is time to enter Samadhi. Because you attain what you set out. Yeah, you know, so it's time to enter Samadhi. And the Buddha had to question himself whether that was what he wanted to do. Right?
Even being enlightened.
Yes. And then Mara said to him, just before he attained enlightenment, Mara said to him also that, you know, you're required back in your Shakya clan. Your father is struggling. You left your wife and your son. Your son is now grown up. The very existence of Shakyas is that...
Don't escape.
So go back. Why are you in this quest of enlightenment? The Buddha said, I'm all right. Their problems are their own. Let me reach the end of my journey. He had to also struggle with his own thing of saying, do I want to step out into the world and tell people about this quest that every human being is in for peace, fulfillment, and happiness? That state of empowerment. तो empowerment circumstances से नहीं आती है. Empowerment हमारी choices, हमारे perspective और हमारी self talk में lie करती है.
You broke every should in the dictionary of life, always choosing your own truth over authority. How do you teach people to listen to their own voice amidst the noise? How do you take people to that voice?
There's something that comes to me from science. It's called the particle wave theory of duality of subatomic matter. Nearly 100 years ago, when subatomic matter was being studied for the first time, it led to a conflict between the scientists who were studying it. And there were two camps. One camp said that subatomic matter is presenting itself as a wave, and the other said the subatomic matter is presenting itself as particles. तो पता ये चला कि the expectations of the scientists who were studying this matter led that matter to arrange itself in the way that it was being expected to,
Okay.
right? And this is very, very profound. Uh, the first element of transformation is that transformation cannot be given nor forced. The second element is that you don't have to always work very hard at transformation. It
I
is
have found
just
that.
a shift in consciousness.
Yeah, it's a perspective shift.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
If I have a conversation with someone and just leave a truth in that conversation, it is enough to start working itself on that shift in consciousness.
How beautifully said. I relate to it. I have never found the words to express it, and you just did. So, is that the way to that voice?
Yes, because that voice is uniquely each human being's fingerprint, right?
There are no two alike.
There is nothing which is alike.
It's like your thumbprint.
Yeah, but having put something in the environment, having shared a truth in the environment, having shared a different perspective in the environment, that is what creates breakthroughs. I often say that I'm not a coach. I only do conversations which prove to be transformation in many cases, and of course in many cases not, because that's life, and every consciousness is
Unique to it,
unique.
to itself.
Yeah, and every consciousness is very uniquely poised to change or not,
Absolutely.
you know.
Becomes kind of like destiny, no? Then
Yes. आपको एक और बात बताता हूँ. आज हम क्योंकि ये ब्रह्मा के स्थान में बैठे हैं,
Yes.
तो you know, we don't understand what is being said when this is uttered. Aham Brahmasmi,
Aham Brahmasmi.
right? What was Brahma's power of creation? I am constantly creating the kind of life I wish to create.
But this cycle, Gitanjali, the way you're saying it, I've just gotten so engrossed in it, is not then essentially allowing an individual or a collective to touch their highest timelines of expression of life.
Which is where mindfulness or awareness or insight comes into play. Otherwise,
So are you saying that majority of mankind is not living their highest experience
we are
of
not.
life?
We are not, and I would include myself in that because this is a struggle. You know, I may be
But at
more
least we are
self-aware.
We are aware that
Yes,
we are not.
yes, yes.
I also am not living my highest expression or experience of life, but that is what my, effort.
I want to love. I want a partner. I want
Yeah.
something, out there. Kuch ho sakta hai, you know? And I didn't give up on my dream. And I think this.
I'm so glad you didn't. Because I always say this, that we don't learn from what, listening to people speak or what they say or what they do. We learn the most by watching people live their life.
So in Buddhism, we say continue to pray, which also means continue to work on yourself till your prayers are answered. Right? So a prayer is then not a wish to be made. A prayer is the path that we walk for fulfillment,
Yeah. I say gratitude is the highest form of prayer. That's all. Just thank you. Which that word gratitude, that feeling of gratitude gives you something that just tells you, okay, keep walking. Keep walking. No matter how much life pulls you down, I'm grateful. I'm grateful in this moment that I have food in my stomach. I have a roof over my head.
Yeah.
Enough ho gaya. It'll keep pushing you forward. Last question. A lot like Brahma being cursed for desire, you delivered 2 best-selling books, turning your cursed, unconventional path into wisdom for others. Seva. Are these creations your way of rebelling or turning rebellion itself into a blessing?
I didn't write as a way of rebelling. I wrote as a way of sharing. I had, by the time, even though I was struggling with the loss of professional identity, the loss of professional place, which in my case was huge to me, right? I was looking at what can I do to help someone else who is struggling. So, globally, Gallup does a global study of employee engagement, right? Globally, employee engagement is down, and something like almost 80% of the global workforce is struggling to find meaning, purpose, happiness at work. That's a huge figure. And it has dropped from the study of in 2023 to 2024. There has been a significant drop in the engagement figures. Working for a paycheck is one element. Working in a way that creates fulfillment, that creates a sense of peace, it creates a sense of contentment,
It's a whole other
and
story.
yet allows for advancement is a whole other story. It's a different ballgame altogether.
Absolutely.
Are we struggling to pay EMIs? Are we struggling because to get to work, is that alarm clock a pain in the ass in the morning, or is it a source of motivation? How do I remain engaged and excited and happy with what I'm doing?
The question really is, what brings truth alive for me in this moment?
Right. Yes. Indeed.
So through this conversation, I think we arrive at a point where you and me align in that truth,
Yes.
right in front of this very beautiful and very sacred space.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Gitanjali, for joining me in Pushkar in this very sacred yet questioning land that we're in. Thank you for sharing your insights and your awareness with me. It is very, very meaningful. And before we end this session, I have this very, little gift that I got created for this show from some artists in Varanasi.
Oh, wow.
So this is handcrafted. This is the Pathbreaker box that every guest receives. This map basically signifies the paths that you've already walked, but more importantly, the ones that are still waiting to be walked. And that is a little compass to, to remind you to keep following your true north.
Can I have a look at it?
Yeah, you can also read what says.
Yes, it says, "Not all who wander are lost." Wow. This is amazing. Wow. Pathbreaker.
You are a pathbreaker, aren't you? In your own way. And this is the main Pathbreaker box, which I'd love you to open.
Yes, Ritika, I am excited, and thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
But yes, I'd love you to open that box as well.
Wow. And so beautifully crafted. Palki.
Yes, this is the campaign that we are running through this show. Palki was a film that I produced about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And that's going to be releasing out of this. So this is the I Am Palki campaign.
I'm Palki. And the one thing that I do to keep my feminine energy live is actually a combination of many things. Spending time with my girls, playing with Donut, my dog. Every aspect of life is so filled with love and nurturing oneself and nurturing everyone in my environment. And to me, that is feminine. To me, that is my Palki life. A series of moments joined with self-care, love for others, nurturing myself, even answering that all-important question.
Actually, the Palki itself is, a reminder that we carry our own stories with its blessings and its burdens alike on our own. We got to carry our own truth, right? Yeah. So, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me here, Ritika. I look forward to a series of conversations with you on every season.
Yeah, that's the must. Every season
of Pathbreakers.
Of course. Of course.
Not just the first.
No.
But I'm wishing you immense success and happiness and fulfillment in your journey, your very distinctive, unique journey. And I always think it's very important. Loads of blessings.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And also loads of gratitude to have me here.
Oh, gratitude is all mine. Thank you. And this is what I Am Palki means to me. The ability to discover our own compass, our own true north between the noise of the compass of morality, the compass of right and wrong that the structured world expects us to follow. True empowerment is the ability to listen to your own truth and to be able to bring that out as a sharing into the world. So I invite you all and I open the I Am Palki campaign to all of you who join us today and in the coming episodes as well. Share your videos. Tell us how you found your own true north. Tell us, when did you challenge the gods or when you challenged the system? 2 stories from this episode will be selected to join us at the end of this season for a Pathbreakers Circle, an evening of celebration, path-breaking, and of course, wonder. Looking forward to joining our voice with yours and then carrying our collective truth that we will carry with grace in our own Palki. Thank you.
In that silence, I wonder, if even gods stumble, perhaps it is not being the opposite of sin, but living itself that makes us divine. To be divine is not essentially to be right. To be living itself is divine. Right or wrong, or a little bit of both. To challenge the gods is not to deny them, but to meet them within ourselves. If they too carry desire, grief, and mistakes, then perhaps our humanity is not weakness, but the doorway to divinity. To live fully beyond right and wrong, that is the path-breaking act.